Welcome back, everybody. It's Chiefs news. We got signings today. We have a clarification on the offensive tackle situation that I know everyone's all fired up about. We're going to get into that. We're going to answer all of your questions tonight on RGR Football. It is your show. Dan and I are just here to steer the conversation. So that's Dan Harms. I'm Ryan Tracy. Throw your questions out in the chat. If you want a super chat, it'll definitely get an answer. We would appreciate it. Any support that you want to throw towards Rogue Nation, we will take. You can get that gear in the link down below in the description. We look forward to your comments. Oh yeah, see, and you got the nice shield logo too. I don't have that one handy. Dang it. Okay, but there's more. And if you guys want to get your questions in, make sure you put some question marks at the beginning. We'll try to answer all the topics, not necessarily everyone's question, but every super chat will definitely get an answer, as well as a lot of the other topics. And I know there's going to be a ton tonight because there's 16 new players that just got signed. There's a bunch of situations on the offensive line, and there's a lot going on. Thank you for everyone who supported us during the draft and bought the draft guide and the matrix. I will have one more update to the athletic matrix as I'm filling in a couple of the guys that weren't on my radar before. So you'll get one more PDF that you can download. If you've already purchased, feel free to grab that. And you get subbed over at NFL 33 for our breakdowns of what has happened and what the grades are on those drafts. Looking forward to that. But just as I finished recording Locked On Chiefs today, of course, we get the news about everybody that has been signed. So we'll go through that. But you guys are going to run this show. We're going to answer your questions, and we're going to let you kind of take us where we need to go, because that's the way that it goes. And we're going to start with Alan. My favorite, Cam Jones, make the 53-man roster or the practice squad. Cam Jones, I had a draftable grade on, Dan. I don't know if you got to watch him ahead of time. But I feel like he's easily a practice squad candidate, and he may push to be a special teamer, like depth linebacker on the 53. I think it's going to be close, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't get to see much of his tape before the draft, so I didn't get to see him. Didn't have a grade in terms of my watchable grade. It was more of a compilation of grades from everywhere else. So you're like, you throw him on the board here somewhere. Just have an idea of where he should go. Yes, you're right. I don't watch every single person. I can't watch every single person. So sometimes I will use a little bit of everyone else's rankings that I see to try to put somebody on my board. It is okay to do that, I promise you. So yeah, I didn't get to see much of Cam Jones, but he, I believe he did speak to the media today, and that was, it was a good showing from him. He looked comfortable, he looked calm, and he looked like he was ready to be there. So that's always nice to see.
Yeah, I agree, and that's kind of the way that I took it too. There's plenty of news, but while we're getting everybody's questions and super chats in here, let me just address the big one. And Alan, I forgot to say this too. I should have put this up first. Good day down in Australia. Nice to see you on the stream. I love it when you can show up. So cheers. The big thing for me is we got clarification on at least where it's going to begin with the offensive tackle situation. Donovan Smith is going to play on the left. Jawaan Taylor is going to play on the right, at least for OTAs. That's not set in stone. For those of you that are still pissed off that the Chiefs said, hey, Jawaan's going to play left and now he's not, and why'd you do all this? Here's the thing. I still believe they went into that draft attempting to get a top left tackle on their board. I think they were trying to get all the way up there. But this is, as we take farther and farther steps back from this draft class, I'm starting to realize that even I had the class as a whole overestimated. It is worse than I think it was. And what happens when something happens where you get a class that it doesn't live up to expectations? What are the safest bets, Dan? If you're a first-round grade or pick, what's the safest bet that you can make?
As a first-round pick? What do you mean?
Yeah.
Just for the team?
What's the safest position? We've seen this happen a couple of times over the last 15 years. Where do you go if you don't want to take a risk on a skill player?
Offensive line.
Offensive tackle is always the best bet.
It has to be. And that's because the value around the quarterback, especially in today's NFL, actually the last 20-ish years, has been the explosion of the offenses. And that is directly correlated to quarterbacks being more important than they ever have been. And, if you're shuffling and you have 15 draftable grades and defensive players are going off the board and you're like, oh, what am I going to do? Oh, guess I got a tackle here. Yeah, we might have might not have a huge positional need here. We have some guys that we can do it, but guess what? It's never in a bad spot to draft a tackle and to put everyone who actually needs one out of business in that department, because like you talked about, this class at the top, it was like, this is a good class at the top. And then it was like, oh, that cliff is real. It's starting to, when you get into the tape, it's starting to, it keeps going, and it keeps going. And you're like, oh, okay. So I think if you looked at our boards, I think I had 4 tackles in as first round grades, and then 5 on day 2, if I'm not mistaken. That's it. That's not great. And then you have a ton of guys on day 3, but it's a tough spot to be in for a Chiefs team that, again, was trying to get up. And I firmly believe that the Chiefs are trying to get Anton Harrison, and the Jaguars pulled the rug out from under them, because he was the last guy. I think that you can make an argument that he was that you could get in the first round and be okay. We see the upside. He's still a good floor player, and we see the upside there. And then the Jags said, well, with this news that we've already had information on for probably months, that was released earlier this week, we're going to be taking that tackle so that you guys can't get him, because we still need a tackle. And that's what happened.
Well, I'll say this. I think they were gunning for one of the big 3, to tell you the truth. I think Anton was the last-ditch hope, and when that went, it went. But I think they were trying to get up even higher than that. And I think when that happens, you see all this compression. The last time a draft was this kind of like, oh, we have to go get tackles because the rest of the field isn't that good, was when Eric Fisher became a Chief. Because 3 tackles went up top of that draft too, because when you don't have the skill position talent, and we can argue about any of the wide receivers that everybody wants to, we can argue about the quarterbacks. I still believed, I think I said it last October, it was a 2-man race to be the quarterback at the top of the draft, and that was it. It was thin after that. Mm-hmm. This is the situation it gets him in. So I still believe that maybe Anton was plan B. Well, Donovan Smith is plan C. And so drafting Wanya Morris is, I think, a bigger gap than we would normally see in a 3rd-round pick. And I think it means for them, they understand there's a bigger path to development for him as well. And I think they're trying to take the pressure off of him. Now, a lot of folks have been pointing out lately that, yes, he has played left tackle. You're absolutely right. When you add up the snap counts in his 4 years at both Tennessee and Oklahoma, it's roughly close. But here's the thing. He was way more successful on the right-hand side. So I believe that Wanya Morris has to start right now practicing on the right-hand side. I think he's a candidate to be the swing. I don't know how you feel, Dan, but it's very conspicuous to me there's no mention of Lucas Niang this week. And I do think that Wanya is in a position where maybe he could get first reps. If Donovan Smith went down, maybe he's the guy that slides in there at left.
Yeah, this is a spot where, before they brought in Donovan Smith, I was almost certain that Lucas Niang was going to be on the roster this year. Obviously not guaranteed to be a starter. Things have changed. If he is healthy and he's good to go, he almost becomes trade bait, doesn't he? Like, he almost becomes someone that you look to trade because he might have some value to a team that needs a tackle. Again, barring if he's healthy. We don't really know for certain if he's fully ready. We know he played a little bit last year, but what does that tell us? That, he wasn't in game shape. We don't know. So he's in a position right now where he could be on the, I won't say he's on the outside looking in, because having 4 tackles that have played reps, or at least 3.5, because Wanya is still going to have to earn that as well. You have 3 guys that have played in the NFL. That's a good place to start. And then you bring in your 3rd round pick. And you have 4 tackles that you probably feel pretty comfortable about, and 2 backups that you feel comfortable about. So I agree, he could definitely be the swing as well.
I hope that that's the way it goes, because I do feel that allows him to kind of ease into it. I know that he hasn't been able to train much because he's been rehabbing that hamstring, but it seems that he's comfortable and ready to go. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. And we have our questions stacked up, folks. If we need to come back to this conversation, we definitely will, because I know there's a lot of question about what happens next and what the offensive tackle situation is. There's a lot to it, and I think this is just the starting point. OTAs will begin. We'll see what happens after that. I think that's going to be key. So moving on, Des, thank you for your support, buddy, and your super chat. What's the role that we expect for Richie James? That's a great question. And I feel right now like he's wide receiver 4 at this moment. We'll see where Richie comes in. We'll see where Sky lands. But the experience is there that he might be able to make the adaptation pretty quickly.
I would think so. He just came over from, Mike Kafka's offense. I would imagine the terminology is pretty similar, and that's something else you can look to for Richie James. He comes in, he has experience, so you don't have to force Rashee Rice into that role because I think they'll play relatively the same type of role. Rashee and Richie James aren't deep threats. They're not. They're more of a short to intermediate threat that, I think that Rashee can develop into more of a deep threat because of his ball winning ability. But Rashee Rice hopefully can learn to get open quickly into that intermediate part. You want him probably getting 7-10 yards on slants and getting him the ball in space and try to scheme open, things like that. And you see that Rashee Rice, I keep going back to Rashee, going back to Richie James because they both have the R's. So Richie James did a lot of the same for the short to intermediate stuff for the Giants last year. He was open a lot in the intermediate parts of the field. And I think that's a good place to start for both him and Richie. But Richie comes in as a guy who's got, again, experience in the system, at least terminology-wise. It's not going to be the same because not every coach has the exact same terminology over coaching staffs. But I do think that he'll be able to come in and be a productive role player in this offense.
Yeah, I have to think so as well. He's not, you can see here, and I want to put this image up because he's unfortunately a lot of like the rest of the guys that we're looking at becoming starters. Rashee Rice is much thicker than Richie James is. He is the slider build type guy, and so that does play a factor, I think, with MVS and Rashee having like the outside ability to manage through physical contact because there's a rotation that has to go on. So could he slip to 5? Sure. I think he and Justin Watts are going to round out the 6 as I see it right now, though. And I'm pretty confident that's the way that it's going to stay. We'll see who gets reps next week, but that's just a starting point. Let's see here. New Punk, hope you're doing well. Do you think we see a rotational O-line to match game situations or situations game to game? Seems like Casey's preparing for some new schemes and ways to make the roster more fluid. Normally, I like the concept, but that's kind of a college thing. Andy likes to roll the same 5 guys and keep that chemistry rolling with as little change as possible. So I don't really see that. Do you, Dave?
I don't either. And that's, like you said, Andy Reid loves continuity. Continuity is a great thing to have. And this team over the last few years has shown you continuity has paid dividends. When they're on the field, Orlando Brown struggled when Joe Thuney was out for a little bit. We saw that with Nick Allegretti having to come in and play some snaps. I believe it was last year, and you saw the continuity kind of take a little turn there, and that was where you had Orlando Brown have some of his worst games where Joe Thuney wasn't next to him. So if you're constantly switching out guys, it's hard to get that comfort level and always know exactly who's going to be where they're supposed to be in any given play.
Yeah, I can feel that for sure. Let's see. Thank you, New Pants. Appreciate your New Punk rants. Sorry, I just combine your names again because that's what I do. B. Mitch Schwartz had a good point for the Chiefs, specifically making maybe the right tackle is more important than left tackle because of Max Crosby and Joey Bosa. That's an interesting take. It's a little bit of a stretch for me because Max is scary, but he's not that scary. I mean, unless you just don't like tattoos. He's somebody that you need to prepare for, but I don't think you change the plan. I don't think you address the construction of the offensive line based on Max Crosby or even Joey Bosa. Am I wrong, Dan?
I don't disagree to an extent, but I think Max Crosby is approaching top 5 defensive ends in the NFL, in my personal opinion, from what he can do. I think he's an excellent player. We'll see if that contract impacts his level of play at all. But I think Joey Bosa has been a declining player over the last few years. His brother is much better than he is. I think we all kind of understand that to this point. But speed, for an example, that's what Joey Bosa brings. He doesn't have a ton of power, but he does speed to power, and his quick ability to get around the arc, to stress the arc is what will allow guys like Andrew Wiley and guys like Jawaan Taylor to have a little bit more success because they have that natural gift of being able to get to their spots even before a guy like Joey Bosa does. So I don't think you tailor it to these guys specifically. I mean, Mitchell Schwartz knows better than anybody playing against those guys on the right-hand side there. So I'm not going to say he's wrong in any stretch because he's going to have a little bit more insight. But I don't think Andy Reid specifically would make a positional move based on edge rushers where they play. if that were the case, I'm not sure Andrew Wiley would have been playing right tackle for as long as he did the last couple of years. But that's just me.
No, that's probably a fair point. I can get with you on that one. Thank you, B. Appreciate you. Let's see, Gary, our newest moderator, folks. Say hi to Mr. Gary Holland. Ryan and Dan, of the UDFAs, how many do you think could make the team this year? It's funny because we just had Alex make a comment on the channel today about how we're a little too rah-rah. We're a little too cheerleady, huh? Well, there's 2 7th-round picks who played significant snaps for this team last year, and you never know who's going to get a shot. Guys do get injured. Guys do fall out of favor if they can't perform. And so there is always a chance that one of these guys could. Who is it for me? I come back to Jones. Cam's a guy that can run, he can hit, he knows where he's going, and he's been a green dot for his college defense. I like all those aspects of it. Here he's going to be asked just to play special teams because he's going to be fighting Jack Cochran basically for a roster spot because Drew Tranquil is going to be in there. I don't think there's any way that anybody pushes them around. I do think the top 3 linebackers are set in stone with Leo Chanel being number 4. And then is there a 5th? Is there a 6th? 5 I could see. I don't know about 6, Dan.
I don't know. It's tough for UDFAs to make the roster, period. Like it always is. It's a tough spot. And we feel pretty comfortable about the players the Chiefs have on their roster already. It looks like they're doing a little bit more recruiting for other veterans as well. So we're going to, which we will get to, I'm sure, very soon. But when you have a team that is already not much different than it was last year, their wide receiver room is almost the 6 of 6 that we assume it's going to be. With Richie Rice now in the fold there, corners pretty much the exact same thing as it was last year. They brought in safeties to fill the void. It's going to be tough for UDFAs to make this roster. It's going to be on special teams. So who do you think is going to have the most impact on special teams, can be able to come in and contribute to that? And that's where you're going to probably see some DBs and wide receivers. Nico Remigio is a guy I have my eye on. Even Deneric Prince as a guy who can come and play on special teams a little bit here and there. He could as well. I think Martez Manuel's got a shot as well, just to be able to come in and play special teams. That's what you're looking for. It's just specifically DBs, wide receivers to come in and fill those gunner roles, those return roles. I think that's what you're looking at.
Yeah, they signed 4 corners this afternoon. Yeah. Khalif Halisi, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Western Kentucky kid. Very productive, a little bit better in the matrix than I thought he was. Ran his numbers this afternoon because he wasn't the Western Kentucky player I was looking at for the Chiefs. Yeah. But definitely an eclectic group that you never know who could actually make that leap. It's that old saying, and I know that it's kind of cliche, but it's not how you got here. It's what you do once you get here, especially for the UDFAs. I'm trying not to get stuck in a rut. I just like Cam Jones a lot, so I don't mean to just give you guys the same answer over and over, but that's kind of where I'm left with it. Now, this next one is tough. Jeremy, this is a great question. I appreciate you asking it. Which drafted players are least likely to make this team? Woo, doggy.
For me, there's only one answer to this question because I think that all but one make the roster.
Okay.
And it's Nick Jones. He's got a shot to make the roster, but they are full up at DBs. And don't forget, there was another corner that they didn't play last year, another safety, Najee Johnson, who could make this roster this year as well. So that's what you're looking at. I believe that everyone else will make it. I guarantee you. I will say it right now. My Jamari Connor video comes out on Wednesday. That man's making the roster. He's making the roster. I guarantee it. No, he's going to make the roster. And then again, Kendrick Colburn's going to make impactful plays for this team. He's going to be a backup to Derek Nani, in my opinion. I think he's going to be that. And no offense to Nick Jones, who has good ball skills and he's got some good talent, and he can play on the outside for his size. And I like his ability to condense to the slot as well. Mm-hmm. They are full up. He's the one guy that I don't think makes the roster.
I think he does. I think it's Mortal Kombat, him and Najee Johnson, I think is what it comes down to.
Yeah, I think Nazee's big ability in playing on special teams last year is what's going to make him on the roster this year.
You could be right, but you know what? He looks confident to me. I like seeing this group. This is your rookie class, folks, by the way. They took this out at practice this afternoon.
Nice.
We're going to talk about Keandre later because he's the second coming of Colin Saunders, and seeing more of his personality, it's even closer to Colin for me than it was before. So I'm pretty into that. But man, of all of these guys, I do think they all make the 53. I'm just going to say that now.
Okay,
I think it's the hair of the chinny chin for Nick.
I also think it's the hair on the chin for BJ Thompson, because
Fair enough.
I think we're going to see another veteran added to that defensive end room, and that might push him into some severe playing time problems.
Could be, but I will say this: if this happens, and we're going to talk in depth about it, folks, don't worry. I think BJ Thompson's the guy that reaps the most benefit from it, because I think he's the closest physically to it.
I agree.
Okay, rock and roll. Everyone, just so you know that Jeremy is one of our members. He supports us constantly, and that's why you get that little icon next to yourself there when you're up on the screen. We appreciate all of our members. And I'm sorry for my last rant if you missed it. I put it up for a while and then I took it down because it was just way too much cussing that I was not comfortable with. So I'll try to do that again. Dan doesn't care. He's much more comfortable than I am. But you'll get sporadic content behind the members line that I'm not comfortable putting out in public. So that's one of the big benefits.
We'll get back on that. You guys make sure to hit me up on the Discord to give me some more content, because I know I've been lacking. We've been doing the draft stuff and it's been tough to get a way to make a rant every now and then. But hit me up in there and we'll get something together for sure.
Yeah, and you can get in the Discord by joining at the rookie level or above. It's an automatic thing. You just connect your YouTube account to your Discord account and you're in like Flynn. Not a problem. Mo, good question. I'm glad you asked this one because I was going to follow up on it anyway. Andy said that Ross wasn't eligible for rookie mini camp. I went back and checked all the rules. Actually talked to an agent friend of mine today. The only reason that could be is because he is not cleared and not off of IR. Because he did not play any regular season snaps, he should easily be eligible in terms of like the snap rule. So it's got to be related to his injury designation. And he didn't get very detailed though, like he does. So what are you going to do? But thank you, Mo. Appreciate you. Terry, UDFA most likely to have an impact.
I'm going to keep going back to the same well. I mean, it's Remigio, because I think he could be a legitimate return guy. And, we talk about impacts for UDFA guys. And the one spot that I think you could argue that they still need kind of oomph at right now is return man, whether it's punt return, whether it's kick return. I don't think you want Isaiah Pacheco continuing to take kick returns. He needs to stay healthy. He suffered 2 injuries last year he played through. That's not a recipe for success if you're continuing to put him out there on kick returns. You need somebody who can come in and give a little bit of oomph to that return slot. And I think it's Nico Remigio. Remigio, however you say his last name. I know he's Spanish, so. No,
you're doing fine. That's exactly how I pronounce it, although not that I'm like the end-all be-all. But I'm just trying not to steal your thunder because I was going to go with Nico as well. Yeah. So, Tara, we got our fingers crossed. I will say this. He's not a UDFA, but the guy that has been on the practice squad for a while that I do like. I heard some good spark out of Ty Freifogel today as well. So look for him to be kind of in that Justin Watson, pushing for the roster thing in OTAs. We'll see if he can put it together for camp.
Love it.
Kev, did you hear about Chris Jones' tweet? Absolutely. And do you think that the get an extension done quick enough they can still sign D-Hop? If D-Hop becomes available, he is not yet. So I do think trade is completely out the window. They will not trade for him. But if he were to suddenly become available, I think the biggest thing, Kev, and folks, I will try to pull it up here so we can actually look at it together because it is telling. But Dan, you foreshadowed this particular thing a while ago. Do you want to tell us why? And then I'll put it on screen.
All right. So earlier today, Chris Jones tweeted out that I'll find the exact tweet because, it's not that hard to find for me. He added Frank Clark and said, let's finish it, ... at Chiefs. Now, I think we all understand what that means because Chris Jones is a very upfront, personable guy who wants to play with players that, he's played with before that he likes. And I think we all understand that he and Frank Clark have a mutual respect and understanding for the game of football, and definitely want to keep that going. That means that this is the player that I don't necessarily expect, because we don't know what other teams are sniffing around and things like that. But I would imagine there's some mutual interest to keep Frank Clark in town and to try to keep him continuing to climb that postseason ladder of sack leaders in NFL history. That's also something that we know that he wants to do, and you could do very well in Kansas City. So Frank Clark joining the Chiefs again at some point this offseason, maybe closer to training camp, might be something we see down the road.
I like the way that you said that. And I do think that this is specific. Folks, let us know how you like this layout. I'm playing with some of the custom options here. We'll see if it works for us or not. But coming from Chris, it's important because the team's going, glad you tweeted it out, Chris. Now let's take some cash off of this contract you want, right? Because you could pay for your friend Frank to come back to this roster. You could do that today.
I wonder if this tweet came about because of some contract talks, maybe because this didn't happen recently. It didn't happen before the draft. All of a sudden, we see Chris Jones talking a little bit about Frank Clark come back. So maybe we're looking at some kind of extension sooner rather than later.
That's what I'm hoping, because much like the quarterback, Chris Jones can take his cues from Patrick Mahomes and leave a little bit on the table.
Yeah,
he's in position to become the highest paid defensive front player possibly at all, certainly defensive tackle. If he leaves a little bit on the table for his buddy Frank, that could facilitate his return. And that's exactly what we were talking about before, folks. Frank Clark comes back to this roster. It's B.J. Thompson that reaps the rewards immediately. Yeah. Then comes Felix. I do think, not that he wouldn't like mentor Felix or anything as well. I think Felix, standpoint, for sure. And I think in terms of pass rush, I think Felix needs to be more like George is right now, trying to get with Tom Bahali.
Yeah,
I think that's the path forward for Felix to become a dominant player. Whereas Frank, I think, could be very much more instrumental in helping BJ make the transition to the NFL, because I think that their styles are way more similar. Doesn't mean it can't happen another way, but that's just kind of where we're at, Kev. So, and then back on the D-Hop thing, if he were to become available and you've already done the Chris Jones thing and you have available cash, you could see that become a factor. I don't think so. It would have to be the right thing, and I think it would be incentive-laden. I don't personally feel that Hop cares. I think he's comfortable with an incentive-laden contract. I don't think that would, preclude it from happening.
No, but I would hope so. I think he wants to win a Super Bowl. So I think that this would be an area you can do that and say, I'll leave a little incentive money on the table. We're going to the Super Bowl. I got a chance to get that money anyway.
Right. Should be there. James, thank you for your question. I feel like the coaches will have a hard time figuring out who the 6 wide receivers this year for the Chiefs. Yeah, I mean, there's good competition. Let's see. What's Marset, I think, is a viable NFL receiver as well that we're not even really talking about yet. He might be the guy that makes the splash in camp. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Certainly Justin Watson. Everyone wants to know about Justin Ross. When Justin is cleared and he's able to practice again, we'll see if that's in phase 2 for OTAs or whether it has to wait till later in the summer. We'll find out. Certainly could push for that too. It's a nice problem to have, I have to say. But what we've seen happen in the past is there's a magical week 3 preseason injury. There's a number of guys that get squeezed onto the practice squad. And if you do it correctly, the Chiefs have been successful in maintaining their wide receiver talent on the practice squad. So I'm not super concerned about it. Dan, are you?
I mean, not necessarily. The problem for me is that at the back of their wide receiver roster is a lot of kind of average to below average players. And I like Richie James, but his ceiling is capped, is what it is. He is what he is. Justin Watson is the exact same problem that you're having. And you have your top 4 guys in MVS, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, and I think Rashee Rice are going to be your top 4 receivers. And then the 2 guys, it could be any of them, but I think that most talent and upside would lean, at least in my opinion, to Smith Marset being included in that, and then Justin Ross, assuming he's healthy. But that also leaves Justin Watson and Richie James on the outside looking in. So they might end up maybe not carrying a fullback and having a 7th receiver or a 4th tight end, however they want to go about that. But regardless, I think the back end, I think it's more set in stone myself than I think most fans believe.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I can live with that. Let's see who is next. Thank you, James. Allen. No one is complaining about the money we paid Tooney. He was money well spent in our coaches, I trust. I like where you're coming from. Some things get cloudy, and we can always complain and throw mud at the front office or sometimes even at the coaching staff. Spags has been known to be stubborn. That's a legitimate complaint.
Yeah.
But in the end, they've been able to cobble it together, and they've maintained competitiveness to the point that they can be in position to make the postseason run. And it's really what it all comes down to. So I think having made that run several times now, I feel better about their ability to repeat that. Do you think I'm misplaced in that, Dan?
No, I don't think so. I think that, people talk about the money for Jawaan Taylor because it's a right tackle. And I'll tell you right now, I don't care. I do not care what the money is for the right tackle because he is going to have to earn that money. He's going to go up against, like Mitch Schwartz talking about, against Max Crosby, against Joey Bosa. You're going to have to go up against multiple, or they have to play the Eagles again. They have to play the Dolphins, who have quite an array of pass rushers over there too. They're going to earn their money, okay? And you're protecting Patrick Mahomes. And like you said, like Alan's saying, no one's complaining about Joe Thuney's contract because he's earned every cent of it. And I know people are talking about not being able to pay Creed Humphrey or Trey Smith, but that's just not true because guard and centers don't cost that much money in terms of tackles. They don't cost $20+ million. They cost 15 to 16 if you're the top end, and even then, that's kind of pushing it at times. So I think you're not. I don't think you're going to have to pay Trey Smith anywhere close to that. You're probably going to get away with 10, 12 million a year for Trey Smith because he's still not an upper echelon guard. He's not. If people are saying that he is, he's still got room to move, and there's a lot of upside there, and he's still got some technical aspects to work on. But that's a good problem to have. So the offensive line, I think, is in good hands, and paying money at a premium position in the offensive line. That's what this is. The offensive line is now a premium position when you have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes. I got no problems.
I would put Trey in the top 32 in terms of guards.
Oh, for sure.
He's the upper half of starters. But yeah, he's not top 10 elite.
No.
That's a different stratosphere. And honestly, he shouldn't be. If he were there, then they grossly underdrafted him. So
yeah, exactly.
Dylan, thanks for the question. Which is more likely in your opinion? Rookies playing above their expectations or second-year players taking a step forward and avoiding the sophomore slump? That is a great question. And I have to say, nothing against them, but I don't feel that this rookie class is quite up to par of the last rookie class. So I feel what's more probably likely, and I won't say it's like drastically, it's 40 for me. I think that the second-year players will avoid their slump more so than it will be the rookies like destroying and taking over. That's just me.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll have a slump, but I don't know if they'll necessarily take a huge step forward. I think that there's one player in particular that I'm expecting to take a step forward. In Trent McDuffie,
I think
he could be.
Okay. I was thinking Sky Moore, but okay.
It's tough with the wide receivers because you just don't know how much they're retaining, especially coming out of Western Michigan last year. It's hard to take that leap, but I do think that Trent McDuffie showed everything to be taking that second-year step. Getting his hands on balls and not coming down with them. I think that was probably going to haunt him all off season, so he's going to be working on that. But I like the rookie class. I feel like nearly all of the top three guys were a little bit of reach. So that's going to warrant some unforeseen expectations onto them that they maybe don't necessarily deserve. So it's going to be hard for them to live up to and just kind of exceed expectations, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, and that goes back to what we were talking about before, folks. Like the quality of the class overall made more reaches more possible. It all comes down to fit in the end. A lot of reach talk going on today. Well, that's all out the window when it pays off. So you can call it a reach all you want. All it means is like people around the interweb disagreed. Well, no one cares. The league could not care less. That's why every team has a different board. As long as they fit your scheme and you can get the most out of them with your coaches, that's what matters. I don't want us to get too hung up on that. Alan said Mr. Veach wanted to trade up, but the price was too high and then nobody wanted to play with us. Yeah, I mean, you win championships, people get kind of tired of it. This is called the New England treatment that we're about to start seeing a lot.
Why do you think they traded back so much?
Yeah.
I mean, Bill still does it, but
I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, Alan. Mark, one of our members, thank you for the question. Do you think that that it was Anton they were trying to get there when they rumored to have tried to trade with the Cowboys? Did Anton want the next pick, right? Because they took
He went to the Jags. Yeah, I don't remember who was first. It had to have been the Cowboys first, right? Before the Jags.
I thought so.
23.
I'm going to double check that though.
Cowboys were at 23, I think, and then the Jags were at 24. So yeah, that would make sense to me. If that's how it painted out, then yeah, that's exactly what I think happened. What they were trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, every year is every year, but you know, it's all about who's willing to play, and I understand they want to throw a name out. I don't think Mozzie Smith was the pick. I don't think that's who they were working for, and I'm double checking it right now. Dallas was at 26. They took Mozzie. Jax was at 27, okay. And they took Anton.
So I had it right, just early, too early.
Yeah. I think probably they heard through the grapevine that Anton was probably going to go to the Jags, and they were trying to get up and ahead. So yeah, that was kind of like their last ditch effort. But I will say this, Mark, I think that was just at the end. From what I heard, they were pretty much kind of shut out of it already. They were trying to get in the teens from what I've heard from multiple sources. And that's where the frustration kicked in. They were trying to go get one of the top three, either Paris or Skoronski or Broderick, just like we talked about all off season. They just couldn't get it done.
And they went so high.
Yeah.
It didn't really matter. They were going at the end of the 10s. Like it was almost impossible for them to get up that high.
Yeah, it would have been gargantuan. So I can't blame them for not getting there. Jeremy, thank you. A pro on a new rookie was he was a teammate of Tooney at Tennessee. Thought it makes good chemistry. He was I'm getting confused here.
I think he's talking about Smith.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, he was a teammate of Tooney at Tennessee. No, Tooney's drastically older.
Yeah, he's not. He's the oldest guy in the offensive line.
Yeah, that was not. It was Wanye playing with Trey at Tennessee, and then he played with Creed at Oklahoma. So he's played with both of them. So yeah, the question, it's a great one, Jeremy. Like, how do you look for chemistry on the O-line? You got to get the dudes in the room together. And so I think that's part of why Carvin made and was signed today, because he's part of that Tennessee group as well. Like, he knows these guys. Those guys, most front offices will take the word of their current players as a good indicator of how a guy will fit in. And so that goes a long way towards creating that chemistry up front, when you sometimes just have to take a chance. Yeah. But that's what the UDFA season is for. Cole, another one of our mods in the house. Looks like FLDB is here as well, so give those guys a hand. Nice to have you guys back. Do the offseason surgeries for Felix Anadike, Uzama, and Isaiah Pacheco have concern for you? From what I understand, both were pretty minor. It's the labrum on Pacheco that has me more concerned of anything. The hand surgeries didn't bother me in any way.
Yeah, it's a tough one, honestly, because I've said it a lot, and Isaiah's running style lends itself to injury a little bit because he is very upright. There's not much bend there from him just to go through traffic. And, you catch a bunch of hands up top on the shoulder pads, you're starting to twist your body around a lot, and you could re-damage a little bit of that. I'm no expert, so that's just more of a feeling thing for me. But it does lend itself to injury, especially the way he runs over guys. That itself, those hits add up. When you're coming up, when you're up so high, and you have to bend at the hips all the way down to get prepared to hit somebody, that can bring pressure down just as fast as you're expecting impact. So it's a tough running style for him, and you hope that he can stay healthy through the rest of his however long he's in Kansas City. And I'm not too worried about FAU's personally, because although it was a second injury that I did not know about. So that's two injuries that he had last year. So just keep an eye on that.
Yeah, played through them. That's something to keep an eye on as well. Yeah. That is something you got to do in the league more than you do in college. So good for him. Thank you, Cole. And Des, thank you. Who would you like to see us play the first game? I'm all for bring on the Bengals. Let's get it out of the way. Orlando, I think so far has been pretty tame compared to his new teammates. but I don't want to hear this crap go on all season. I don't know about you.
Bengals or the Dolphins, just to shove it in Tyreek Hill's face. I just to say, hey, buddy, you walked away from this. Just that's it. I know that they're still pretty good friends with just about everybody, and he and Chris Jones go back and forth on Twitter because they are really good friends. But just say, hey, look, we're hanging the banner, buddy, and you decided to take $25 million a year instead of 20 and coming to win a ring.
Y'all got to pay for your choices. It's just the way it goes. Thank you, Des. Micah, how you doing, buddy? Is it worth trading up for Bowers next year? Is a future first round, second round next year, and a late round pick any year worth it? The man is a tight end. I mean, I can see moving up. I'm not giving up a future first and a future second and this year's first for a tight end. I won't do it.
He's going to be a top 5 pick. So, thank you, but no.
And he might be worth it. He is that good.
He might be. But you also have to remember that Kyle Pitts was the 4th overall pick 3 years ago or 2 years ago. Yeah, I would imagine the Atlanta Falcons might want to have that one back. And it's no offense to Kyle Pitts, who, again, was great his rookie season. Then he got hurt last year. He was great his rookie season.
I just saw your comment.
How much has it helped them? It hasn't really helped them. So getting all that draft capital away that you're going to need to keep this dynasty, we're going to keep saying it, this dynasty afloat for a tight end? No, thanks. I'm good.
And honestly, the dynasty is the other part of our previous conversation about the UDFAs. That's why you got to find something to get excited about UDFAs, because more of them are going to have a chance to make it just because of the salary cap concerns. Until the next couple of years where we expect big bumps, right now it's pretty tight. So you got to have some low-end contracts to have your star contracts. It's just going to be a bit of both. Dallas Countryman, hope you're doing well. What do you think about the running back room will look like this year? Do you think Deneric Prince will make the roster? Right now, I think he does. I will say this. I heard that Jerry Ely looked markedly better these 3 days as a running back than he did at any time last year as a wide receiver.
That's a name to watch for training camp too. He was fun coming out of Ole Miss. I had a lot of fun watching his tape, and he's so shifty. He's got that speed, and if he looks better as a running back, that's huge. I know he's small. He's like, what, 5'8"? I think he's about the size of CEH, but he's not as thick. CEH is a much thicker back. He's faster. He's shiftier. He's quicker. So if he can get better running between the tackles, that's a huge boon to their ability to play and maybe have a little bit of a different feel at running back at times, because Pacheco's big and fast. He's not the shiftiest guy in the world. They don't actually have a ton of shift anymore, because for everything that Jerick McKinnon is, he's not shifty anymore. He's more of a straight line. Okay, I'll run you over and not making you miss very much anymore. They don't have a ton of make you miss at running back, so he would help that quite a bit.
Yeah, I would like to see that. Jose Estrada, thank you for your question. If CH wasn't taken in the first, what would you think of his game, and why do you think he gets so much hate? Is it just the first rounder wasted, or am I in the minority on him? I do believe it is the first round designation. And it's unfortunate to him. It's completely legitimate, though, because it is a loss of value. But if he were taken in the third, I think we'd be fine with it. He'd be another member of a committee, and it wouldn't be a big deal in any way.
Most of this comes from people screenshotting plays where he's running outside zone and they're showing a 90, 100-degree turn he'd have to make to a wide open cutback lane that 95% of running backs can't make. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that screenshot every single season. But I'll talk about it. I'll talk about it again. When you're running outside zone from shotgun, okay, what do you have to do? Turn your shoulders to the sideline, okay? So where are your eyes looking? The sideline. Where are they not looking? At the 100 degrees behind you. They're not looking there. They can't see it. It's impossible to get there, okay? And I refuse to let this die, because people have been giving him crap for years about this. This is the Chiefs using him on outside zone from shotgun. It's awful. They can't do it anymore. It's not a way to utilize his strengths. Between the tackles, if you want to run outside zone, under center, please. under center.
Give him a
Use
chance.
them that way. Give him a chance to see a cutback lane instead of taking it away from him completely. But most of it is the fact that this is why the argument exists. You don't draft a running back in the first round. The Atlanta Falcons might learn this the hard way too, because as good as Bijan is, are we talking about a guy who's going to play 80% of the snaps and impact them a ton? Checkdowns, the one thing you can argue is that he's a good receiver.
Yeah.
Are you going to use him down the field? No, probably not. That takes away his ability to be efficient in the passing game because it's all checkdowns, okay? He's not a 4.5 athlete on film. He's not. Right. He's a 4.55 guy. Okay.
That's what did we say about CEH when he came out? He's a great pass catcher.
Yeah.
It's not enough always, especially if you're just catching swing passes.
Yeah, it doesn't help you. That's why we saw last year he was catching balls down the field for touchdown. They were more down the field. He had a couple behind the line. But at the end of the day, man, it's tough taking a running back in the first round because they aren't going to translate to wins. They just aren't.
They're icing. They're not the cake. It's the way that it comes down.
Yeah.
I'm going to skip through some of these folks. I have a hard out at the top of the hour, unfortunately, because of kid things. So Jerome, Chris Lammon's got picked up. I've seen nothing else from them. I think he's under indictment, so I don't really care.
Well, he got cut by the Bengals a few days ago.
Oh, did he? Okay. So, yeah, I think they see that legal trouble coming. Micah, no word on the Thursday night game yet that I've seen. New Punk, color me optimistic about MVS Tony, Moore, Ross, Rice, James Watson, Kelsey, Fortson, and McKinnon. It's going to be scary as a receiver room. Yeah, don't forget that last year was a rebuild. Exactly. Like there's plenty of talent there. It's who steps up and who's able to actually exploit when teams do get crafty. Let's be real. The coordinator is still in Cincinnati. Yes, they lost Jesse Bates, which I think is a big loss, maybe more so than the media is playing up, but it's still going to be a challenge. You still have to have guys step into Juju's role and be able to produce for him. I think Rice can do that. I'm looking forward to it.
Their defense is really good. And that one of the big reasons is that, they had Bates, but they just didn't matter who was there. They played very sound fundamental defense. You can play sound fundamental defense against the Chiefs. You're going to make it tough. But they're still going to find a way to move the ball. I can promise you that.
Yeah, not too many ways around that. Micah, do you think the KC would have traded up over Dallas in the 6th if they got word that Dallas wanted Deuce Vaughn? No, I don't think so. Again, this is the running back value. Like they're not trading up just because he went to K-State. If they wanted him on the roster, they had opportunity to take him earlier. So I think they would have done that. I don't think, honestly, I'll bet you most of the league was pulling for him to end up in Dallas anyway, just to be reunited with his dad. What a story. That phone call was impressive.
All of it, man. It was amazing. Yeah. That whole story, him leaving rooms when they were talking about him, about draft, like the whole thing, it's fantastic.
Like just to see that room congratulate his dad was cool.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big Jerry Jones guy. So
no, that was a really cool moment for a guy that I give a ton of crap to because I can't stand Jerry Jones.
Excuse me. Oh, sneezing there. So Mikey, I just don't think they would have pulled that. So how do you guys feel about a potential Mike Pennell reunion as well? Blase?
No, thanks.
Yeah, I can live with that.
Kendrick Coburn's probably a better. Actually, no, not probably is a better player than Mike Pennell is right now. So I'm good.
Well, what's the change in the offense this year? Matthias, thank you for your support, and it's Matthias. A great question. What is the change? Is it 13 personnel? Is it? It's not going to be fullback. It's not going to.
Nope, it's not going to be fullback. It's going to be 50-50 balls, all right, because they got some guys that can – I think they're going to do a little bit more, maybe more of a, just a little pinch of salt, just a little pinch of 50-50 balls thrown in with Richie Rice and Jody Fortson. I think he can do that as well. I still think Sky Moore can do a little bit of that. He's smaller, but he is tough through contact. I think he can do that. He has excellent hands, and we know that they love to throw Kadarius Toney the football everywhere on the field. He's also – dunked on guys before, so it wouldn't shock me to do a little bit more. We know Travis Kelce can do it too. Like that's no shock here, but he's just always open, so it doesn't really matter. He doesn't have to dunk on guys. So I think you might see a little bit more of them being trustworthy in their players against closer coverage. They're going to have to be with as many young players as they have on the roster at wide receiver.
Yeah, I gotta think so too. I'm just going to give you a giant caveat, Micah, and thank you Matthias, appreciate it. Dan, check out his question, and I'm going to pull it up here while we're doing
All right.
it.
I appreciate it, Micah. You're always in here asking questions. We do appreciate that. Honey Badger had an 82 PFF grade. Reed had a 71 PFF grade last year. Who played better off of our assessments? Was the swap worth it? So there's a couple things you have to consider here. I would guarantee you that Matthew was not asked to do nearly as much in New Orleans as he was asked to do in Kansas City. That would be my first guess. I have not gone through and done a side-by-side comparison on Justin Reed and Matthew. I haven't done that. But I did get to watch him a few times. And I could tell you that PFF grade is made up. Because he was not that good of a player, but he was not asked to do the things that Justin Reed that he was asked to do in Kansas City. I saw him getting manipulated multiple times personally from watching some live games. And again, I haven't done a full dissertation on his play last year, but he wasn't awful in New Orleans for sure.
Well, I'm gonna show you what I see here, Micah, because I do want to point it out. You got 200 more snaps out of Justin Reed. You got 4 more, double the pressures out of Justin Reed. You got 15 more tackles out of Justin Reed. You did get more misses. That is a significant portion for me, and that is the big negative here. You got 27 stops out of Justin Reed, more than what you got out of
65 times.
Right. and yet the percentage here is within 3.5% in terms of completions allowed, right? Obviously, bigger plays. The yardage was definitely higher. He allowed 3 touchdowns and 2. This is the big thing. Didn't come down with the picks. Justin had more PBUs, didn't get the picks. So I agree with Dan, and I've said this multiple times, and I'll say it again. I do not read anything into grades other than a generality, because PFF's scoring system is dependent on people who don't necessarily know what they're looking at when they put the initial grades in. And if they're not caught on the second go around, they let some bad grades go through. I'm just going to tell you the truth. So I look at results, and I feel in terms of cost, I think I'm perfectly happy with what Justin Reed put up. Do I want more? Do I expect more? I think the investment is there, and I should be able to expect more. But I think the swap was more than worth it in terms of cost to the bottom line and cap space.
And I will say, after the Bengals game, last year, that's when you saw the missed tackles almost disappear. Yeah. He talked before that game, and he got lit up. They got lit up, and after that, I think he was one of the best, if not the best defensive player, actually second best defensive player next to Chris Jones on that defense. He was breaking up passes, and he was doing everything he was being asked of him. So again, the interceptions will weigh more for PFF than anything, I think, and that's kind of why you're seeing that huge disparity in their grade.
Agreed. Cole, who took over as running back coach after Greg Lewis? It is, I believe, the Todd Pinkston.
Yes,
and I know
correct.
people are going to say, Todd Pinkston, really? Well, yeah. He's also getting backed up by Porter. I always forget Porter's last name. You always see him with Andy. He's the guy who lost one of his arms, Porter Ellett. So, in fact, let's just do this. We'll just do a quick rundown of the current staff so you guys can get a look at it. I'm going to hide Cole's question here, and I should probably hide our overlay banner because it has a tendency to get in the way a little bit. So let me blow this up just a touch. So here's the changes. You got Alicia was an internal elevation. He had played before. He had been on the staff before, I believe, as defensive quality. Let's see. Joe Blameyer got a bump up to pass game coordinator. That's what let Connor Embry take over at wide receivers. Connor Embry is right out of a quality control position as well. He is the son of the former Colorado Buffs coach that Eric Bieniemy played for and is very close to. Connor Embry's on the staff because he knew Eric Bieniemy. I'm really surprised he didn't go with him, but that tells you that the Chiefs have confidence in him. And so I think that's important. You saw Ryan Reynolds get promoted to head of strength conditioning. He was their previous assistant for Barry. Barry did retire. Spence Reed got the bump as well. One of the few guys I don't know is Mark Richards. He's now their new research analyst. He's working for Mike Frazier, who's their head of statistical analysis. So that's the big updates there on the coaching staff. Let's see. Mo had something. Smith isn't more talented than a healthy Ross. You gave Powell flowers and thought they would make the roster. Yeah, well, hey, you got to go on what you know. And I would say a healthy roster is a question mark, Mo.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what it's all predicated on, right? Is whether somebody's going to be healthy or not.
Yeah, and
Gary,
I fully admitted that I put too much into those 6 games, and I would have put those 6 games that Cornell Powell had up against a lot of people before then. And again, you live and you learn. So,
yeah.
Justin Ross's tape outside of his first season was not good, and that's kind of fact. So, gotta wait and see if he's even going to be healthy.
Yeah, that's the big question. And Trevor Lawrence covers up a lot. I'll give him that.
Absolutely.
Ryan and Dan, do you see the K-State kid could have 6 to 10 sacks? Sorry, I can't spell his name. Felix Anadike Uzama. I'm practicing that because I need the practice. Yeah, I do. I think it's going to be kind of similar to George, and that's going to be a slow first half of the season. Then it's going to start to click, and then it's going to come on. And then I think opportunities will raise themselves. I'd love to see him get 7, 8 sacks. Breaking 10, I think, is a bit of a stretch for me.
Yeah, I think 6 to 8 is probably what you're looking at. That makes the most sense to me.
Okay. Tom, and sorry, folks, I'm trying to speed up here because I do have a time thing going on.
Get going.
Tom, appreciate you. Saw Whiskey Myers on Saturday night here. Awesome. Great show. There was no name. There was a no-name chick singing in Nashville also. Okay, good to know. I haven't been down there in a long time because I get in trouble when I go to Nashville. All my friends in Tennessee will tell you that, and don't believe anything they say otherwise. What are your thoughts on how the percentage of TE snaps are allocated? Long time. Tom, I hope you're doing well. Thanks for the support, and I hope you're having a blast. I love all the music info. It's good to have a conversation with you. I hope that Jody is the guy who gets the second most snaps on the tight end role. Can he stay healthy? That's what it is.
That's all it is. If he can stay on the field, I think he should, and I think he will. I'll get the most targets for sure among the tight ends that's not Travis Kelce. So that's what you're looking for, him to stay healthy, get on the field, and be impactful, which he can do.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate you. I'm going to try to rush here a little bit, folks. FLDB, what are we going to see with the Bengals defense, where more defenses doing more than one type of defense in a single play? Seems Mahomes has seen everything. Aaron is going to come up with something.
Yeah.
My guess is that it's going to be more of a show single high, go to 3, and I would not be surprised to see like more of a middle runner. Maybe from the safety position, but so that you can kind of show cover 4, come down out of it, and have somebody there at that intermediate to deep crosser region that Mahomes likes to throw a lot. That's what I'm thinking.
I think they're going to stick mostly with the same stuff. The problem is going to become, stopping Mahomes, because it does limit what they do. They limit quite a bit. And you saw that even in the AFC Championship game, they scored 24 points. It wasn't like they blew the top off of the defense. So
yeah, I'm with you. Thanks, FL. KL, thank you. Appreciate you. Josh Williams or Jalen Watson, who takes the biggest leap this year, Dan?
Williams. I think Williams is going to be the starter in nickel.
Rock and roll. He had the slowest kind of role as rookie, but he came on.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think he's got more of a jump in him than Jalen. I thought Jalen played pretty dang well.
I think he played well for a 7th-round rookie, man.
Absolutely. Dez, thank you for the support, buddy. Realistic, what's the min-max of Pat's Super Bowl wins? I think he can get to 6.
Yeah. The maximum, I think, is 6. I think that's realistic. And that's the funny thing is it's realistic. You could see him winning 6 Super Bowls. The minimum is 3. I think they will. I think they'll win at least one more. I can just say, I would say 3 is the minimum.
If everything went right and they get the left tackle of the future and a target, if they can hit gold in a Tyreek Hill type talent again at pass catcher position, it could run all the way up to 8 or 9. Because if they get that dynamic again, it could.
I'm sorry. That's where I draw the line.
I
draw the line.
What is he? 27? I could see him playing another 15 years. So you're saying he can't win half of those?
No, I don't think so, man. I think the NFL is just too different. It's the parity. We'll see.
Bumpa Smith is trash. Not happy about it. I don't know what you're talking about, because you're talking about Trey Smith. I'm not sure what the hell you're watching, because Trey Smith is pretty good. Is there another Smith that I'm not thinking of? Is there another Smith on the roster? I don't even know that I've looked lately, to tell you.
I haven't looked to see if there's another one on the roster, to be honest with you.
I'm going to do that real quick just because, I get tickled about these things.
Ryan, you got to go. Don't do it.
I know, right? You're right. Never mind. No, I disagree. I don't think he's trash. Sugary, is there anything that any UDFA, Khalif Halisi? Yes, I ran his numbers today on the Matrix, and I ran a couple of things that you guys are going to like to see. I will fill more in after Dan's film review coming here. But where did he end up? He ended up, he was number 2 in the Eagle Matrix. And that's PBU's interceptions, forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, and TFLs. So it's a percentage, basically, is the way that I run that set. So he got on the board in the top 10 there and in yards per completion allowed. So those were there. Unfortunately, he's in the 30s in the athletic matrix. So it's a little bit difficult. But he's a guy at his level that made some plays. He had been at, I want to say, Oregon or Oregon State before he transferred. And he wasn't as successful there. So maybe he's got a rebound in him. If Justin Ross works out, what is his ceiling? Talent?
Talking about legitimate X receiver, like a perennial Pro Bowl X receiver in the NFL, because the talent's there, but he just had been healthy, and that's what I mean when I'm talking about his tape. Outside of his freshman season, it wasn't there because he's been injured. And it's hard to say that he's going to get back to the talent level because sometimes injuries can just kind of take that from you. It does happen all over the place.
It really does. And it's sad to see. FLDB, thanks for being here, buddy. Ocean, thank you. Kwai Brewing, if you guys get there, go there. Great German beer. You will dig it. I just sent some friends of mine there 2 weeks ago. They loved it. Joe, thank you. Appreciate you. I'm not sure if it was addressed already, but the news about our O-line today, is there any way they are keeping Taylor at right tackle this year and then moving him to left tackle next year? Zelda forever. I like that one. I will say this. Nothing's written in stone anywhere. I do think they still want to look for a left tackle of the future. Could Wanya grow into that? Sure. Could a draft pick grow into that? Sure. Is it Donovan Smith? That's the only thing that I am sure of that it is not. He is
that could be the Smith he was talking about.
Oh, that could be. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Fair enough. Bumpa, sorry about that. Yeah, I told it. He's the new guy.
Yeah.
It will not be Donovan Smith for long term. So, and if Bumpa's right and he is trash, we're going to find that out pretty quickly. You could see Taylor move over.
Everybody?
You could see Wanya move over. You could see a whole new player play over there. Good evening, Miss Avery.
Hi.
Hi.
Come kisses.
Give Dad kisses. He needs it.
Joseph,
Joseph, thank you. Appreciate your question. And we're just going to have to play it by ear. Heck, we could see a move here in OTAs. You never know. Is Jody going to stay healthy and give us 9 touchdowns this year? I hope so.
Wasn't he on pace for like 15?
Yeah. I'm taking the under. I got to tell you.
Yeah.
And we're going to finish up with Thomas here, unless there's another super chat that I missed. And I have not. So don't throw one in, you guys. Don't throw it in. Last question. Great job this offseason in the draft. I love Wanya pick. And the news today from Andy moving Taylor to tackle. Is the plan to move Wanya to back up Smith at left to learn from him in 2024? It's going to be an experimentation. Could he do that? It's a possibility. I don't foresee that being the way that it goes, but I do think he's got enough there that they can try it. Make him the swing and see what happens. Do you see anything more sinister, Dan?
I don't, but again, I don't know what they're going to do right now. They have a lot of different things. They still don't have the future left tackle. I don't think that they're going to stop Smith, stop Taylor from playing left tackle this season and then make him do it next year. That makes no sense to me personally, but what do I know?
Tactics, you're killing me. You're killing me. Thank you, Tactics. And thank you, Thomas. Appreciate you. Josh Allen, great runner, big arm, needs a great receiver to be elite. Playoff choker. I wouldn't call him that, but I see where you're coming from. He and Lamar and Herbert, they're all Donovan McNabs. I think it's going to be really interesting because people are starting to say a lot of outlandish things about Lamar and his wide receiver group. It's still Lamar. I am not convinced. I'm just going to tell you that.
I'm more convinced than you, but that's okay. I think that Josh Allen, he had one choke artist move in the playoffs last year. He didn't show up against the Bengals. But the year before that, he was dismantling the Chiefs defense. He was on a mission. So I think that there's still another point there, but we'll see what Josh Allen shows up, because he has that Jekyll and Hyde to him too. He can throw a random pick for no reason, but he also can show up and light it on fire. Like he can do that. So he's more of a Jekyll and Hyde quarterback. And sometimes Donovan McNabb shows up. Sometimes a little bit of Patrick Mahomes shows up, and you do see that a little bit.
Yeah, I can understand why Bills fans are happy.
Yeah,
it's all about that last 5%. That's it for us tonight, folks.
Seconds.
I gotta run. Thank you for hanging in with me, Dan. Say goodnight to Miss Avery. You guys have a great day. We have content for you. The film review's up on Wednesday. Gary's got a piece tomorrow. I have something later in the week. We're going to find out the schedule and everything else. So hang with us this week. I hope you guys have a blast. Thanks for being here. We'll talk to you next time.